We've reached a time in our country where it's going to be necessary for the silent people to stand up and to fight back, because you're fighting not for yourself, but you're fighting for your children. You're fighting for your grandchildren. You're fighting for freedom in this nation. America is not a place. America is an idea. It's an idea about liberty and justice. An idea about the ability to worship as you please, to lead the kind of life you want, to put as much energy into something or as little energy as you want, to reap the benefits of that. And one of the things about America, there are a lot of people who, are down on people who are rich, saying how horrible they are, how they're causing all our problems. Newsflash. Who creates all the jobs? Who creates the opportunities? It's not poor people. It's rich people who do that. And I heard a lot of that when I was growing up, resentment about rich people and just silly stuff like that. But my mother always encouraged us another way. We were poor, and she worked as a domestic cleaning people's houses, but sometimes she would take us to work with her and say, see these beautiful neighborhoods and these beautiful homes and all this? And she said, you have a choice. You can live where we live, or you can live in a place like this. But the person who determines that is not somebody else. The person who determines that is you. And she would always say, why do you sit around watching TV all the time? If you develop your mind, people will be looking at you on TV. She was right. But, it's so important that we stand up, the people who think logically. This has nothing to do with Republicans and Democrats. Nothing. It used to have a lot to do with Republicans and Democrats. But the difference was they had the same goals. They just had different ways of getting there. Now we're talking about people who love America, who love the concept, and who are willing to fight for it. And you have people who hate America and want to fundamentally change it into something else. That's why it becomes more difficult. But do remember, there are a lot of people on the other side of the aisle who actually are reasonable people. It's just that their grandfather and their great-grandfather and their father and their mother, they were all Democrats, and they just feel they belong there. They need to be shown and welcomed into a different way of thinking and understand what it is that they're supporting when they support this move toward socialism, this move away from our godly principles of understanding that our rights come from God and not from the government. And then the next cornerstone, liberty. I can't say enough about how important it is to be able to do what you want to do, to live your life the way you want to live it, as long as it isn't infringing upon someone else's rights. That's what liberty is about. Freedom of association, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of virtually anything that you want to do. Now, some people say that doesn't work anymore Because if we allow people to do what they want, because we're essentially a bigoted and racist country, we will discriminate against blacks and browns and gays and whatever. All you have to do is ask yourself, how different is this country today than it was 50 years ago? It's completely different. I was around 50 years ago. I remember. And it was accepted. I remember when I was in the 8th grade, and I was the only black student in the 8th grade. And I had been a terrible student when I was in the 5th grade. I was the worst student ever. But it was the same kids in the 8th grade that I was with in the 5th grade. And, they gave a certificate out for the highest achievement. And, by the time I was in 8th grade, I was top student. And you would take your report card around to each teacher, and they would put the grade on it. And I had all A's. I got to the last class, which was band. But I was really good in band, so I said, I got this. The turkey gave me a C because he wanted to ruin my report card to make sure I didn't get the award. To his chagrin, it turned out band didn't count. But at the award ceremony, one of the teachers got up and berated all the other kids. He said, "You kids aren't trying hard enough because a black kid should not be number one." But see, that was 50 years ago. That was more than 50 years ago. You wouldn't see anything like that today. But the left is not willing to acknowledge the changes that have occurred in our society for the positive, for the best. And we have to be willing to talk about that. We can't just sit in the corner and let them carry the entire narrative.